Hello, and welcome to SonarFeed, episode 298, an effort to boost guest experience. We're here at the Berliner Pub in downtown Renton.
4th and Main.
Peanut Gallery's here. Mickey Turner is here. Nico's here. We, by the way, sandbagged all weekend. We were like, yo, Nico's coming to the show. And people were like, oh, my God, Nico's coming to the show. And we're like, yeah. And they're like, Nico Ladero's coming to the show. and
It's happened before.
Again, I was super excited. I'm like, no, the Nico that like has the scoop on everything. And they're like, but what about Nico Ladero? And we're like,
We do not have that kind of pull.
I mean, sometimes we do.
Yeah,
this
to
week
fair.
isn't that week.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
right, live from Mexico, Nico Ladero. That actually could be a hookup. We could probably figure the technology on that out.
Hey, absolutely.
He would probably enjoy. We'll just get on that. Yeah, someone will be in Honduras. You will be in Honduras. Cool. So you're gonna run the show next week. Oh, cool. You'll carry the gear. Enjoy checking those bags. and
and not get them taken away from you.
Yes.
odds are high they will take your gear away.
It's rough
So anyway, do quick introductions. Nico, you've obviously been on the show before, but just in case folks don't know. But real quick, I'm Tom Biro, a.k.a. Bougie Hooli. To my left, your right is Nico.
Oh, Nico Moreno at El Rolo NW. Just happy to be here. Excited. I'm a big fan of SonarFeed, and yeah, love it right here.
Oh, that's me. Mickey Turner, Turner's ESQ on the Twitters, and yeah, busy week ahead, and a lot to cover from last week still. So happy to be here once again.
We should probably tweet out that we're actually live now.
That would
'cause
probably
everyone was
help.
Like, what are you guys doing? Hanging out. So, lots going on in Sounders Land. Some acquisitions. I think since we've had one. Right?
One.
So we had already had the other. So one plus a trialist
Right.
of a known quantity, which is kind of neat when you actually recognize who this person is. Sounders playing some friendlies coming up. CCL coming up. Lots going on. So I don't know. Maybe just to kind of give a quick refresh, Nico, on kind of who you are, what you do, and dig in from there.
Absolutely. Well, Nico Moreno, for all you guys who don't know me, El Rolo. I do a lot of my English articles for Sounder at Heart. I do Football MLS in Spanish, which is the official website for MLS in Spanish. And then I have my own platform called El Pulso Sports Network. We're doing some pretty cool stuff. Hope you guys are all tuned in.
You should be if you're not.
Trying to push the limits a little bit, doing things a little bit different, adding segments that maybe other people don't do. And, you know, sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned, but we like it. We're being creative, trying to give you guys some different to watch. So I'm excited. We're covering the Defiance. We're covering the Seattle Rain. We're covering your Sounders. Just doing a little bit of everything bilingually. Whenever we can definitely throw it in Spanish, we do. Whenever we do it in English, we do. It's a good deal. I definitely enjoy it. I'm proud of it. So appreciate all the support. Yeah.
Super. Well, thanks for coming on again. I would say let's maybe dive in on a couple of things. Maybe we start with Ibarra, who's apparently on trial with Sounders over the next few
Breaking
days
news.
in
That is
Mexico.
breaking
That came
news.
out earlier today.
Yeah, Steve Goff of the Post to
yeah.
give the credit, and then
And-
confirmed by a couple of other sources, including Nico.
A couple of other signings of recent note, both who look pretty fantastic when you're talking about filling some gaps. So maybe just dive in there, sort of perspective from your end. And
Yeah, well, it looks like a, you know, I don't think I've ever doubted the way that, and I know I'm in a minority here, or not in a minority, but I know there are certain people who definitely doubt some of the system, and it's easy to doubt. But they're doing their thing. You know, they signed 2 DPs. I think the Ibarra move as a trialist is a very good possibility. He's a veteran player that could play various positions as well. I think he's a quality guy, good poise on the ball. I've talked to Ozzy Alonso just recently about, you know, what he brings to the table. He's a good player, good locker room guy. So yeah, man, I think he'll be a good fit here. And the two big ones, right, is JMR and Joao, depending on how you want to say it. Two fantastic players. I think that Joao definitely made me feel a little bit more comfortable about his defensive abilities out of what I saw in the Sacramento Republic game. His ability to just recognize the field, angle out players was very good. I mean, Sacramento Republic, was a friendly, but for whatever they were trying to impose on the Sounders, he was always ahead of the game, pressuring. His ability to just slow the pace down, pausa in Spanish is what he brings to this team, creativity and distribution from that first line of midfielders, which is fantastic. I think he's going to be a great complement to Nicolas Odero. And then Jamar, he is your huge, strong, powerful center back. He is a player who is hungry. He's always been hungry. He left his home and went to Argentina when he was 17 years old. He had to do basically whatever he could to get on the ranks. It wasn't easy for somebody who didn't have a lot of connections there, but he ended up coming through. Goes to Rosario Central, then Unión de Santa Fe. He does great there, and what I've heard is that as soon as he got that starting spot, he never let it go. I love his character, love what he brings to the table, so I'm excited.
So moving back to Ibarra real quick, because it's obviously a very intriguing signing. They have Roldan at the right wing position. Roldan can clearly play basically wherever they need him to, except for keeper.
That's Christian Roldan,
yes,
just to clarify
yes.
for those who watch me talk trash about Alex.
Yes, Christian Roldan. So Ibarra seems like a very potentially good piece to have as either a backup or, more importantly, I think to start over the summer when the Sounders are set to lose 27 of their 30 roster players,
like
pretty
players
much.
Who can stick it in Open Cup and things like that. Absolutely.
And
like
the month of June when they're going to be decimated, most likely. Jeremiah, I was talking with him, O'Shan, and he was putting together kind of how the roster would look during the month in June when everyone's going to be gone on international duty, and it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant to look at. I mean, there were still some solid pieces, especially in the defensive side of the field, because you're going to have Yaimar most likely. You'll have Zhao. You actually probably won't have Nuhu because he could get called away to whatever is going on in Africa. And then you'll have Learda maybe. I don't think they're involved in any competitions during that time, although I know his Suriname, is that where he's? Yeah. They qualify for gold. Actually, yeah, they qualify for Gold Cup, so he's going to be gone. Mm-hmm. So Ibarra would be a very nice piece to have, especially with Roldan gone. And it's if they can make it happen, that'd be great. It's interesting to see how much room they will have under the cap to work with, as the CBA didn't include a very large bump from last year to this year as far as the salary budget is concerned. It's only up about 5 or 6%, so that's not a massive boost. So if they, he was a pretty expensive player last year. He clearly will not be making TAM money or close to TAM money.
No.
So if they can get him for 250, actually probably less than that, I would say in the 150 to 200 range, they can get him around there. Then that's you do that deal all day. The only other question I really have is if that is going to hold up the development of any of the kiddies, Buana, Hopiao, if they decide to sign him, Alfonso Campo Chavez. So those are probably the two concerns, is how it affects the cap for me, as well as holding up some of the young players. But
I think Ibarra, for me, even just trialing him is attractive to me. Just having paid attention to Minnesota before they had the MLS club, was sort of the local beloved player that people talked about, and then he went to go to Leon? He went to Mexico for a minute, I think.
Yes.
Not
long. He was back.
A minute, yeah. But it's that's the kind of player that you're you want some veteran leadership, somebody that can show up and just maybe not get a ton of minutes, but can be out there and at least play 60, 70 to a match, especially when you're in gap fill moments where you're way, way down your roster. You need a couple of players that can do that at any given point. And Sounders are in a love-hate situation right now where they have so many superstars, both internationally and otherwise. They're all getting called up, or all their nations happen to be playing in whatever tournaments or coming out this year, that to be able to have somebody that's not, where we looked in previous seasons where it was the 22nd, 23rd, 24th player on the roster all the time that you were expecting to try and be out there and score goals or, man the defense, whatever it was. I think he potentially changes the game. So it's exciting to see things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly the reason why I thought it was odd that they let go of a guy like Luis Silva, who, by the way, still does not have a team. He's training down in Utah. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was somebody who, when he came on, he made a difference, and he got close to the
almost scored against Dallas
a couple of times. I thought he's a guy who has a very good shot, a good locker room guy for what I could see, friendly, overall a good player, I thought. And I was interesting. I don't know if he asked for too much money. I really don't know how it played out. Something I really should try to get to the bottom of, because him and Ibarra are not too far off on what they could probably provide to the team at one point or another. So yeah, but that's why Ibarra is interesting, because he gives you that same veteran presence of a good guy in the midfield.
And a little bit younger.
Yeah, and a little bit younger, 29, right.
And we can talk amongst ourselves if you want to eat your spicy wings. We don't want to keep
I didn't quite realize. I didn't think about the whole...
We do not stand on ceremony here.
Escape the show for a minute and come back, and Mickey and I can banter if that's easy.
We might do that at some point, for sure. Appreciate that.
Don't want to keep from the wings. What's that? I think someone on the internet did, so I just repeated them. I consider them like a 1.7 out of 10 from a spicy perspective. That's not a negative.
It's probably still too spicy for me. I do not do spicy foods.
You also don't eat chicken wings.
Yeah, that's also true.
So there's that.
Mm-hmm. No chicken wings?
Oh. No.
Man.
Yeah. I was very neglected as a child.
Seriously, just keep them coming.
Yeah.
Anyway, so couple big moves. Obviously, a lot of that was tied to where the CBA negotiations had been going, and I think once that we're gonna extend it a couple more days, and then it obviously came through. Wow, was that only last week? It feels like
we didn't discuss that at all, did we?
It was pre-show.
Yeah,
or post-show.
Yeah.
So we knew that they had bumped it a few more days.
Yeah, a week
exactly. Came in. You could see Garth was like, "Well, the wind's blowing this way. Let's make some moves. Maybe let's dig into CBA. We can chop up
absolutely
that for a second. I don't really see any players that seem bothered by where the CBA negotiations went, right? Seems like it swung in their direction in many, many ways. Yeah,
so the big talking points, like I said, the one thing that the owners probably got that the players probably decided they didn't want to push for as is a major increase in the compensation, like the overall salary budget. Now there's going to be some movement between GAM and TAM and all that stuff that'll go in, so there will be an effective increase, but the actual salary budget's only going up by like $600,000 for this year, and it's only going to go up 5% every year basically. Still, they got a lot of stuff that they should be very happy with, and you could tell they are very happy with. The free agency is definitely one at the top of the list. This is a massive change from where they were right before they signed the 2015 CBA, where there was no free agency whatsoever. And the free agency they got in 2015 was very limited, 28 years. You had to be with 8 years of service, which basically, priced out pretty much everybody who would have any use. Yeah. And they're all, 30 years old. So on the downside of their career, you're talking about 30-year-old MLS players. Not high demand for them. So now we're down to 24 and 5, which basically will get you any homegrown players who sign at a reasonable age will be coming into free agency mostly after their first contract, because most contracts are 3 years with a couple of options. So after those option years are gone, a guy like Christian Roldan, he's locked up, but just him for an example, he was coming free at the end of the year. I think Morris would have also qualified 16, 17, 18, 19. He would have qualified at the end of 2020 for free agency, meaning that those guys could have walked to any other MLS team for free. That is, again, that's good foresight on Garth's part to lock them up long term.
Yeah.
So those two contracts are looking about as prescient as possible. But just for your standard academy player who signed at 18 or 19, If they are not happy with the team they're at, they don't think they're getting enough run, or they're clashing with the coach, or the front office doesn't see them in their plans necessarily, they can say, okay, or the coach leaves and goes to another team, and maybe the new coach doesn't rate them. They can say, hey, I've got another option. I can go, maybe I won't get the massive contract I'm looking for, but I can get a raise and go somewhere where the coach, appreciates what I can do, and I won't be held up by MLS's rules where I have to have my rights traded to the new team,
right.
Even though I'm out of contract. So, the free agency thing was a shocker to me that they got the numbers they
That
got.
far.
Yeah, I was thinking around 26-6.
Yeah.
Would have been a win for them. So
the age group in the league, or the age demographic breakdown, has dropped even since 2015. Like, look at
Danny
Sounders
Leyva,
even.
Leyva, Alfonso Chavos.
And I think you see teams like Kansas City starting like 2, 3, 4 people under 19.
Dallas.
With
Or Dallas.
points.
That's a great example.
And it's not like they just happen to be starting kids. Like, they're starting kids who are pretty good.
Yes, yeah.
So I think as that
Pereira.
happened, it only made sense. And frankly, like, this is also, I think, a little bit of MLS trying to play defense against global soccer market, where you're like, well, you want these players to stay in MLS just because of the league structure and the way things work here. You don't want everybody coming in and raiding your, Jordan Morrises of the world like every other season. You can't have them always leaving. So trying to get players to, want to stay and play in the domestic league is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that will help do that is the fact that they took out the limitations of the TAM money. So now you could maybe use that extra surplus of money on your own domestic players, or on a guy like Steph or whoever you want to put that money into, which you didn't have that before.
Right.
So now you'll be able to, let's say you have the next big thing coming through the ranks, you'll be able to pay him some money so he doesn't immediately go down to PSG or doesn't go down to the Italian league or the English league, wherever it is. I think that's very helpful, taking down those walls and giving the GMs the ability to move that money how they please.
Speaking of PSG, Neymar to Inter Miami. Where did that come from?
Add one more to the table. Come on. Just keep bringing him on.
I saw that today and I was like, I'm just going to scroll past this.
Yeah, I have no interest in discussing.
Me neither.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
let that be. I could see Orlando trying to make that play too, just given some of the ownership situations down there. But if I'm Neymar, I'm definitely not going.
He's
to Orlando.
making $30 million a year. He's
like
not
entire
coming.
MLS teams.
Yes, just put that right there. He's making $30 million a year. No MLS player makes more than 7 or 8. Do the math.
Maybe he just really wants to hang out in Miami.
I mean,
Yeah, if he comes, somebody's got to audit somebody.
Okay.
There's some money.
There's some money under the table
there's
over
some
there.
money somewhere else, or a property. I don't know.
or a team possibly.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe he gets half of the shit.
Yeah.
We're gonna
you
get
can go to
another
Las
Beckham
Vegas
situation.
Yeah.
So big deal on the CBA. I think we're all pretty surprised. A lot of us, I know, a few months ago, ECS members, just fans I talked to in general, people who are somewhat in the know, were like, I think they're gonna walk. Like, if people were not, they were at least 50-50, if not swung a little bit towards the players, like walking away for at least a minute.
I think there was obviously more a chance of a strike about 3 weeks ago to a month ago than once the extension was.
Well, we talked about it.
Yeah.
You were 50-50 at one point. So,
but once the extension was granted, that was kind of the cake being baked. You knew they were close to a deal, because you don't extend a deadline a week when you still have 3 weeks until the season starts. That makes no sense.
So speaking of deals or no deals, Nashville stadiums. There's the we can rescind your team if you don't sign a deal to build a new stadium. That's apparently a real thing. It has to be a scare tactic, but it's legally viable.
Yeah. Okay. So I was talking to a source for another team in the Midwest who was at threat of losing their team recently. And they told me that is a standard provision in MLS contracts. Said team, Columbus Crew, while they were while they were developing their, this is after they were.
Is that actually the Midwest? I'm gonna vote no.
Yeah, it is not, but we'll leave
go
that.
with it.
We'll leave that debate alone for now. But after they were quote unquote saved and they were developing their stadium, as part of the New Deal with the new ownership group, there were provisions that allowed MLS to revoke the team if they were not making sufficient progress on their stadium, and there were deadlines. The deadlines, as I hear it, got pushed back because they were making progress, but those deadlines were there. So that is absolutely a provision in the contract. I absolutely believe it. It's in a legal pleading. They wouldn't say that in their motion if it wasn't true. That would be ridiculous. So I'm sure that I don't know how long that's been a provision. I'm sure it will be a provision going forward. It is not needed to be used, although maybe it should have been New York City FC. But yeah, they can remove that team if they want to. Now, was that going to happen? I don't think so.
Not likely.
It's certainly not going to happen before the season starts or
Could
during
they
the
sell
season.
it to another owner and then give the Nashville owners the chance to buy another expansion team in another
my
city?
God.
That's never happened.
Well, so the most likely outcome, if this thing goes, goes south.
Austin 2.
Yeah, Austin already has two teams. Is likely they're not going to fold Nashville, but they will move them. There are some
But like actually
viable
in the middle
locations.
of the season.
No. They would do it after the season's over.
But like they would really do that.
I don't think it's a very high possibility.
Divisions next year, so
Yeah.
at this point, what does it matter?
We'll see who's coming in next year. Sacramento and Charlotte are coming in next. Sacramento and Charlotte,
No.
or
Austin.
Austin and Charlotte coming in next year. So they did a lot of hoop jumping to try to get or keep from having odd number of teams. That's why they pushed Charlotte to the front of the line. So they're not going to fold them because that's just going to mess up their scheduling. So they would absolutely move them somewhere. The NFL moved San Diego to Galaxy's Dick's Sporting Park, whatever it's called.
Carson.
The Carson.
That's Dignity Health
Sports Park. I apologize.
Park Center.
Yes.
Home Depot.
Yeah. I apologize
Keep it going.
profusely, but yeah. So they would, it's not above us a league to do something like that.
Dude,
where
one
the Montreal
season
got
in,
moved,
that would be brutal.
It would be, but I mean, again, why I don't think this is going to happen is because I think the pressure on the mayor, who's essentially the only one fighting this at this point, and he's going to get worse because I think people are going to get pissed, especially because Nashville has, by all accounts, sweetened the pot on what they were willing to, what they're willing to pay. Now you can, maybe question why they didn't pay that in the first place and why they were relying on tax money to prop up the development, but. Okay, that aside, they're now not doing that. It's now basically 98% privately funded. So that's not really something you can hold against them. And the mayor is still, not signing off on the papers to get things started. So,
do you think the season ticket non-purchase situation is at all factoring into the city's or the mayor's attitude?
No, he was on the Metro Council before he was elected mayor, and he voted against all the stadium deals at every point against the way. He's just anti-stadium. He wants NASCAR development in there, and there's some land that's associated with the deal, which Nashville is getting for free, and so that's kind of a sticking point because they're basically getting 10 acres of land to develop as they see fit. So there's still a little bit of a subsidy there. They're not paying market rate for it. But again, there's still, of the, let's say, $400 million in cost as far as the land, stadium, Nashville's not paying like 380 of it. So, or say 350 of it. So they're paying the overwhelming majority of it at this point. And so it's just that the mayor does not want to have a soccer development there, or at least he wants to get NASCAR on board at that location as well. So, I don't know what they can offer him that would get him to sign off. So they're going to have to go either through a political solution, removing him, or creating some legislation to do a workaround, or they're going to have to sue.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a
those
lot.
are the
Like,
options. You can't negotiate
fact
with
that
somebody
that's-
who isn't willing to sell.
The fact that that's even a prospect
At this moment in time.
is crazy. People the other day, I was laughing. Heather Satterberg had posted on Twitter. She's like, "So am I booking my Nashville trip? Am I not booking my Nashville trip?
I think you're safe
What
to
I
do that."
I mean, just go. Nashville's amazing. But yeah, it's a little terrifying to me that they're discussing that at this juncture.
Yeah, well, again, the problem was that they...
Especially when New York City FC and others, but they are the big example that you're like, oh, you let them renew that? And now they're going to be in year 6 now, right?
Yep.
They're in year 6.
15, 16, yeah.
So they're going to bump again at a minimum.
And again,
because
this-
it's not like they're going to get a stadium in the Bronx in 2 years.
Nope.
Like
Nope.
it's
We're
gonna
talking
be
2024,
years.
2025.
So they're going to play at least another 3 seasons at Yankee Stadium or Red Bull Arena or City Field.
Manchester or whatever it's
whatever's
called.
open.
Yeah.
Did you see the tweet somebody posted that? Oh, it's the Chattahooligans posted once the CCL schedule came out, and it had the NYCFC playing at Red Bull Arena. They were like, "Talk about a jersey reveal," and everyone was like, "That might be the best tweet of all time." And like half of the internet got it, and the rest of it was like, "That doesn't make any sense at all to me." But good trash talk.
Yeah. It's the Nashville thing it's pretty crazy. Entertaining but crazy. And I'm not sure when we're going to see a resolution. I mean, there's a trial that MLS is now joined, essentially, to try to get this thing resolved. But that's not likely to be hammered out until the summer or spring, probably. So if you figure that that's the case, they were supposed to start building now, or demolishing now, and MLS says there's a deadline of March 31st to start construction or demolition or what have you. You can do
I
the
mean, you could just dig a
calendar
little
math.
hole.
Yes.
You'd be like, we started.
Yeah, that's that. Well, that'd be pretty hilarious. So
Counts.
it's let's see, we're basically mid-February now, so we've got 6 weeks until that deadline, and the mayor, I think, is willing to hold out because he probably thinks that they're not going to try to impeach or remove him or whatever the procedure is there to get rid
It
of him.
doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
Just impeach.
Yeah, yes, is also true.
So, just for fun, would you take, like, if you had like a spare $50, would you drop that $50 in Vegas on Nashville losing its team for next season?
For next season.
Yeah, like that at the end of the season that
Okay.
they had no team.
Yeah. I would
Depends
give
on
me,
odds.
yeah, if you give me like a 5 to 7 on, I would probably throw the $50 on there. The other thing is, and you referenced the season ticket issues. We'll see. Like, they're going to do well in their first game. No, they're playing Atlanta, so Atlanta's close proximity.
Yeah.
So Atlanta's probably going to travel.
I would
but they're
make that
expecting
drive.
yeah. They're expecting 40,000 for that game, which, if they were to average anywhere near that, no one would have any complaints. The issue is that they're not going to average anywhere near that. And, the reports that they
You
were...
underestimate drunk people in Nashville. You could walk to that stadium real easily from the honky tonks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're counting on a walk-up crowd, that's pretty dangerous. So.
Yeah, don't do that.
And so we'll see where they are at the, let's say halfway through the season. Did they get the 40,000 and then they're starting to bump around 9,000?
Yeah.
Then that's not very good. And maybe that combined with the political issues makes MLS say, this is just not worth it to us, and we're just going to go somewhere else. Of course, again, where could they put a team next year to start that has something approaching a viable stadium situation? Vegas, I mean, Cashman Field is not something MLS is going to go
New
to.
Raiders Stadium.
New Raider Stadium, sure, but
right.
you're going to have to get a deal with whoever's out there, and that's an enticing option, I would think. Now, you need some local ownership to get on board, and you'd have to deal with getting the Nashville owners, John Ingram. He's like a local, celebrity.
It's going to be
there.
NYC3, and they'll play at City Field. It's done.
Just please no.
Call it now.
Yeah.
No.
So, like I said, I would throw some money on it, but as of now, I think it gets resolved. But it's certainly far from a guarantee. It's an absolute mess. It's just incredible.
All right. So we could talk about Inter Miami more, or we could just move on and kind of come back to Sounders.
Yes, let's move on.
So we have some. What's the schedule look like now? The schedule for next week in Sounders land.
So we got a. You reported that there's a friendly coming.
Yes,
Cruz Azul?
Wednesday, it was Cruz Azul was what we had heard. Sounds like that's not going to happen. Sounds like what we've been hearing is that might not be going on. I would think it's pretty difficult to schedule friendlies in between weeks when Liga MX is midway through their... I mean, it's starting their clausura, right? So it'll be kind of tough to make that happen. I didn't quite realize that till quite after those names got told. I'm sure that they wanted to make that happen just because Gonzalo Pineda has such good connections, especially with Pumas. So I think that's still to be seen. I would think that a plan B would be secondary division teams. That might be what you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, the ability to be able to make that kind of friendly happen, honestly, would be pretty tough. So aside from having the team go to a whole other country to kind of get their mind stated ready for CONCACAF Champions League, and the fact that they're, what I heard from Gonzalo, that they wanted the team to be more concentrated, a different type of atmosphere. I asked about the altitude because obviously Ciudad de Mexico has higher altitude. He said that was not the reason, but I think it's a factor. I think it could help them out in one way or another.
Well, in theory, it should help them out, even if they're coming back.
That's right, coming
from
back
there.
Down.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that it'll be interesting how it plays out. I'm still waiting to see if we hear anything official from the Sounders on who those friendlies are. But at this time, I think it's a little bit of a limbo.
I think we talked about this before, that this is just kind of an odd preseason because they've been gone.
They've been not here.
Yeah, they have not been here for any appreciable amount of time. They've 2 weeks out of the 6 so far,
That's
approximately. Right. And so it's just tough to gauge the progress of the team. And it's not so much that they're not here. They're not here, and they're not playing teams that are in games that are being broadcast.
Yeah.
Because all of the games essentially were broadcast last year in the tournaments that they were in and have been for quite some time. This year there will be none, and you're just relying on Sounders Twitter and the media reports that we can get to, which is exactly one game this year. We have provided all of that we can basically. Now they're not going to be back until right before the season starts. They'll have a media day.
They'll come back for the game here against Olympia.
Yeah, and then they'll have some practices, and they'll do the media day, but that's all going to be in the course of about a week.
So it's like the antithesis of all other professional sports, especially the Seahawks, which they're like, they just got their shoes fitted.
Yes.
Let's all check out the shoe fitting from today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I was actually thinking, and I have a piece coming out for Sandra Hart here soon once I finish it. But one of my questions to the Olympia coach was if it was an advantage or a disadvantage to have a team like the Sounders that, yes, they're having new players. They're kind of a rotating piece, but yet there's not enough videos or games that you can strategize for, right? So I'm interested to see how that works.
There is none. There
is none, right? There's no version of you playing with Joao right next to Svensson and what he can do, and maybe some of those shifts information, those overlaps, depending on who's going to be your winger. I mean, I think it'll be interesting. I think that's what the Sounders want to do, is play a little bit with that ability to gain momentum with numerical advantages up forward, pushing their fullbacks, pushing Roldan, making a lot of shifts and movement with Lodero. So it'll be interesting how that works out. I do think that regardless of what's going on, I see a core group to the Sounders. I am a true believer that the 3 pieces that they lost from the championship team, all of those 3 pieces were rotating pieces. Brad Smith, Roman Torres, and Victor Rodriguez. At some point, those were rotated, those were moved, and the team was able to still hold it together because there was a vertebrae, is what we call it in Spanish. It's like that spine. Yeah. Thank you. of that group. You have one of the best, if not the best, goalkeeper in MLS. You got Javier Arriaga, who I can tell you in this offseason worked his behind off. He looks great. He looks happy. El Comandante is, kind of the new thing that some of our fans in Pulso have named him. He's excited to be here, happy. You got Stills Benson, who's an imposing player right there. And then you got Nicolas Odero, Raul Ruiz. You got Jordan Morris, Roldan. I mean, this team has a core group who knows how to play. They know how to win. And that's why I think that those particular pieces like Joao and JMR will come in and hopefully fit in. And this team will have a good CCL.
I'm excited for CCL. It's super fun, just as Open Cup is. It's just interesting to get to see different teams. I'm hoping people show out up here in Seattle. I don't really, weekdays are hard, so you never really know.
I mean, it's good it's included in the season ticket package.
It is.
So.
It is.
Absolutely.
I think that made a lot of sense for them to do that. And frankly, like, people, I think, in the next week or so are going to go, oh, it's not a friendly. Like, this actually means something.
Right.
Let's do something with it, I think that'll be interesting. And frankly, playing against a team that you've played before, that it's not like there's bad blood per se, but they don't like the Sounders, and some of these Sounders don't like Olympia either, is actually pretty interesting.
And all of these Central American teams are going to go at these MLS teams because they feel like
for sure
now they have been forgotten is MX and now MLS.
Yeah.
They used to feel like MLS was the lower, we're just going to beat them real quick.
Yeah, especially
and
Costa
now
Rica.
That has changed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Costa Rica, Honduras, all those teams are going to come at you with everything they got.
Well, and the number of players from Central and South America that are playing in MLS and on the teams that are in CCL is interesting. So there's players they recognize and know because they've played against them or with them, which I think is really, really interesting.
I think the depth of the Sounders is the only thing that at this moment there's a bit of a question mark because you don't know what you're going to get out of some guys like Buwana, who I really like, but
hasn't broken through yet.
Hasn't broken through. You got the right back position with Alex Roldan being this experiment back there. I know you don't like him. I happen to think that he's a sound player defensively in terms of what he sees.
Well, maybe
on the field.
right back is what he needs to be playing. Like that, I have no idea. Like,
Yeah,
I see him every day.
I feel like he's a strong player. I feel like he's physical on the one-on-one. You see him never getting away from a ball, combative. So maybe that'll be his thing, just like you said.
Yeah.
A role that maybe could be very limited to this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to run. You're going to defend. Maybe that simpleness of the soccer could benefit him.
Well, we've only seen him in like random 20-minute stints where he just gets thrown out on the field. Like,
I totally agree.
Sometimes you learn from players. I mean, we saw that with a couple of the kids. You're like, oh my gosh, like 20 minutes of Leva, and you're like, get it.
So good.
But I didn't necessarily see that. Whereas I think you take a player sometimes, you just put him in a different spot, and you're like, oh, okay, 90 minutes, please bring that on.
Because somebody asked me, Nico, what do you think the if there was a position that we lack depth in, what is it? I think it's winger, in my opinion. I think that you have some sort of interesting ideas at other positions. When you think about wingers, the only real winger that I see at this moment in time is Buwana, somebody who's been in MLS games, who's had MLS minutes and has proven to me that he could be exciting, creative. He defies people with his ability to take on the one-on-one.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I mean, Ocampo hasn't really shown, because I mean he could play up top or he could play out wide.
He's doesn't really have the body yet for real true forward play. And is he a winger? I don't know. And then
that's all I can think
Popio
of.
has no experience and isn't a sign.
Player,
yeah. So that's a good point, which is probably why they brought in Ibarra. So my guess is that they want to see if he outplays those young kids.
That's right.
And even besides, again, he would be a useful player to have for CCL and Open Cup and the summer and when they're going to be.
We in the last few weeks have been talking about Sam Rogers, somewhat driven by coach's comments about him a couple weeks ago
after the first practice.
Yeah, where's your head at on him? Because I think we're looking at center back, and even with having frankly two, you talked about Arriaga earlier, and we talked about Guimar early as well.
And O'Neill's serviceable.
Smart. Yeah, like O'Neill's probably the third. Like, is Sam Rogers going to be the fourth center back, or like where are we at?
It's tough to say because we have not seen
him. Yeah.
Him and he got some run in the Sacramento game. Looked fine. Didn't do anything that was He wasn't responsible for.
That's
the
kind of
goal
like
that they
linemen. Sometimes you're like, if they didn't do anything that you really remember,
Then maybe
that
it's
might
all
be
job.
good.
Yeah.
You know,
scored. Yeah. So he was fine. But that's the only time we have seen him in a live game, and that will be the only time we see him in a live game unless he gets signed to the first team or goes back to Defiance. And again, based on Spencer's comments, if he goes back to Defiance, he better be getting signed by June, or else you got to figure that this is his last go around with the Sounders.
And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I'd want to ask you, what do you think about comments like that from Schmetzer, who, again, he's very, very nice some days and very, very intense, serious other days. It was pretty pointed. His thoughts on Sam Rogers, like now or never, was
he wants
basically
to start
the rundown.
a fire on a kid who needs that.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to grab their defibrillator and just boom, hit him and see if he's
what
going to wake
happens,
up
yeah.
to his talent. Because there was a point in time where you believed that this guy was going to be the next big thing, the next Chad Marshall or whatever.
They thought he was going to be signed in like 2018.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the first team.
And he just never made it there with a whole bunch of issues.
To be fair, some of that had to do with some illness that he had, so
That's
that
right,
was
and
not
injuries
in his
and all
control.
kinds of stuff. But if you ask that question that you just asked me, I don't see him being that fourth. I have said in a few shows that I see the Sounders going out there and getting another center back. I know that at this moment in time we don't have any international spots, but maybe something domestically. Maybe you go and try to make a trade. Maybe you go get a player that's a little bit more seasoned that can get out here and you know what he brings to the table. Because absolutely important is the fact that what you guys just said is that international play will take Arriaga, and then what you got O'Neal and who Yamar. So I don't know. I thought O'Neal played okay. But is he that guy that you want to see there? I don't know.
But he's on the list of guys where, like, you've watched him over the years, like, as an opponent, and you're like, they're okay, and you don't really mind them.
That's right.
You know? Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that signing happened, and everybody was like, okay, because they were decent, like a serviceable player is maybe the best way to say it. But it just feels like, especially having seen situations with Chad Marshall retiring unexpectedly and Torres last year and whatever else has gone on, like they've got to have at least one more center back, if not somebody else.
I think they'll add him. And now I will say,
and I know Goose can fill in, and like there's other spots that you can do,
that.
but like that's not what Sounders should be doing at this point.
That's right. I will say that the Sounders have a very good assistant group of coaches. I've seen them coach several, even in the Sacramento game. I was down on the field, and you could see Gonzalo Pineda and somebody else going at O'Neal, saying, this is the way you got to come up. You got to be a little bit more fiery here. You got to anticipate here. So I think their ability to coach up players could potentially help out a guy like O'Neal, who, yes, he's serviceable, but he's still, to me, still not the guy I want to see right there at this moment in time. Of what I've seen so
this
far.
isn't rec league. You can't just have three center backs. Like you need another player. Like it just happens. Hope asks, we talked about Brad Smith last week, I think, a little bit. Hope's just asking, do you think they make any move to potentially bring him back in the future? Or do you think the Brad Smith era is over?
I do not. I personally do not. I feel like, especially with this new CBA, I could see them going internationally and maybe bringing a guy that they could foresee as their new player at that position. I think that they liked what they saw out of Brad Smith, and I think you could go out to South America, just because I'm South American. I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there in the fact that you can go out and get one of these U23 guys that can get out here and potentially be that
cool.
Holy moly.
Thanks, Ty.
Wow. Okay.
Do you want some citrus?
Oh man, see, if I was drinking, I would definitely get on that.
It goes in my water.
This is wrong.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
Dang it, it's all right. I lost my train of thought, but I'm just saying that I don't see Brad Smith coming back. I think that his price tag is too expensive.
Yeah, I think that price tag is really the
position.
main problem there, especially with Jovan Jones, who's a TAM player already.
Yeah, because I heard it was like up in the 6s and the 7s to bring him in, and I remember them. Some reporting, of course, of Traujo, which is a Peruvian of the same position, and he was going up about 5 or 6, and they weren't able to go for that. So
you're saying no Yedlin? Is that
yeah, no.
I saw like 8 tweets like that today, and I'm like,
he makes $2 million playing for Newcastle.
And by playing, you mean not even playing every week?
Unless he gives you that hometown discount, then I don't see that happening.
Again, if Yedlin wants to give the hometown discount,
that is true. Not Yedlin. I don't see Yedlin giving no hometown discount now.
At all. Not at this point.
No.
Plus his,
You know how much the
his
insurance on a
Insta-
Rolls Royce
prime of his
costs?
his
career.
Insta stories are super good where he is, and I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah, I
so
got you. He's a fun guy, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
He's fun.
for sure.
Yeah. So and Smith is making he was making like 1.3 with Bournemouth. I mean, the thing that could lead to him coming back is he is on a free at the end of this, in like 4 months. So it's not like they have to bring a transfer fee. But again, is he going to take a pay cut? And he probably still wants to try his hand at a Premier League team.
I think
because
so, too.
he's still pretty young. He's 26 now. So it's
And he's motivated. I'm
Yeah.
going to say that
Yeah.
what happened in MLS for him was a huge benefit because not only did he get called up back to his national team, but you could see it by the time he left to the time he came back. You could see it when you just talked to him. You could see he was just like, "Oh man, I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to let's go."
And the thing that was funny was when he first was coming over, all the Bournemouth folks were on Twitter and they were like, "Oh, you guys just got a trash player." And I was like, "Do you guys realize that the backups in EPL are better than all of the starters basically at a lot of positions in MLS? And not every position, but
Right.
a lot of them." And he was pretty good and then
Yes.
got hurt early on, but like I remember one play of him just smoking his way up the sideline and tossing it across that you were like, I don't think I've seen a cross like that in 2 years, like from anyone.
His delivery on the ball was so exquisite, and you saw it right off the bat. First practice, the first thing you do,
Yeah.
did it with Leardom, did it with him, is just you look immediately. The way he grabs, the way he turns that hip, he's gone, and then, that perfect service. I mean, you saw it, just a very educated foot is what I'd call it, just how to hit it, with what part of the foot you want to hit it, internal, external. I mean, the guy was just quality.
Yeah. So we talked about first practice a couple times. ECS was out there that weekend, so we got to see some cool stuff. I was in your guys' proximity that day. I think the thing that jumped out to me, and I know there were some players that obviously weren't around, Jordan and Christian for national team and whatnot. There just seemed to be some energy that, not that it hasn't existed in previous seasons, and I try to go to first practice whenever I can. Don't make it every year. But like even Rui Diaz, when they were doing the drills, like two offensive,
That's
two
right.
defensive players, just kind of the flip back and forth. Dude did not want to not be on offense, like over and over. He just was like almost willing to flip sides just to be out there. And there just seemed to be some really, really cool energy with he and Nico and a couple of the other guys that were out there, which was really, really cool to see. And again, we don't get as much access as you guys do, with going to practice on the regular. But there just seemed to be something really, really cool vibe-wise from players, whether they were the superstars or not.
I think they're motivated for CCL for sure. And I'm sure the coaching staff has impressed upon them what happened the last time the Sounders won MLS Cup. In 2017, they didn't have an injury crisis at that point, per se. They just were not very good for the first half of the season. And Smetser's attributed that to a hangover. And so I think a lot of that has to do with them wanting to show much better than they did last time, coming off of a championship. So yeah, you can definitely see the motivation and the camaraderie. They look like they're ready to go. They have a few pieces, as we've talked about, that they need to fill in on the back end. But the starting lineup, you can pencil in right now at this point. And, they look, again, Sacramento was a USL side in preseason, but you could tell the quality that the Sounders have. So,
But it's a good point because I was always afraid that Roman brought a little bit of that camaraderie and that extra.
The fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that they're trying to simulate it. I think that, Arriaga in his own shy and he has a very different way about it, but he's doing a good job. And I think Raul is very, like you guys said, motivated. And I think that you're starting to see that for sure.
Yeah. And I funny seeing Arriaga on somebody's Insta, or maybe it was Sounders Twitter or whatever it was. They're singing in a restaurant. And I was like, all right, that guy's in. Like, he's stepping, and you talked a little bit about him stepping up either just physically and like working out in the off season or whatever. And El Comandante, that nickname probably will go a long way if dude shows up and, looks like a boss on the back line. So that'd be awesome. overall. But yeah, it was just interesting to me to see both the like a little bit of play time, like, you know, Nico, even with the goal and someone like erratically kicks a ball to him and he just like spins it over whatever keeper was there, like negative, you know, direction into the net. I don't know. It was just, it felt a little more like play, which was pretty cool. Considering Precky's out there and he's like, we're just going to dust defenders, guys. Like, let's mess with them right now. Yeah, I don't know. Energy just seemed fun. And maybe part of it is we haven't had as much access as we have in previous seasons. So that like limited amount of time, we've all seen them. But at the end of the day, we've also seen that stuff that, you know, teams win something and then the next season they are trash. And that has happened in MLS a lot. And if they're kind of that juiced right now and, you know, from the, you know, tippy top of the front office to the last player on the roster feels that like CCL and other stuff's really, really important. I think that's what fans, supporters, whatever are into. You know, Open Cup is going to be something this season that players, the fans are going to be very much looking for. Let's hope they make a little bit of a run here and push hard on CCL, which is just exciting. And frankly, now that other MLS clubs have done pretty decently in CCL over the last few years, you can only expect there to be a lot of all eyes on Sounders this season.
I think they'll have a good season. I really do. I think they're gonna get through Olympia, and that just will be the first step, because once that team just begins to be more cohesive as those pieces begin to get more in line with the scheme and the formation and their roles, then man, I think they're really going to be on a good one. I like what I see.
Yeah, there's not been a whole lot of turnover of, you said, the foundational pieces. They've lost
that's right.
some of the rotational pieces. But, you know, as far as, you know, the starters, Kim Ki-hee's probably the only one who was like, who, you know, he was penciled in as a starter last year. Victor too, to a certain extent. But, you know, they had Brad Smith, who kind of switched in and out as well. But so they've got replacements for Smith. They've got now Zhao to kind of link up with Svensson. They've replenished the back line. They are shy of depth, probably at right back as we speak, and at center back. That does need to be resolved. But for CCL purposes, they'd be fine right now. But you know, going through an entire season, that's obviously not enough.
And I'm excited. You got a CCL type center back. I mean, Jamar is gonna come at you. Now he has some finessing to it. I got to tell you that he make sure that he gets well polished.
Yeah, some of those tackles.
Some of those tackles are rough, and that's his MO. He just comes in hard and then think about it later, you know. But I've been told that he literally won the hearts of every single fan of Santa Fe. So I have a feeling that he's going to come out here and do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
With that power play, with that intensity, that aggressiveness, and that hunger, because he's hungry. I tell you, Yemar, I've been told that he's one of either top 5 or top 3 best center backs in the Argentine league. He has not been called up to Colombia because the depth there for us is just crazy. Davison Sanchez and Jerry Mina and just Os Murillo. I mean, there's just so much play there. But he's a guy that we would call if there wasn't depth.
But that like win the hearts kind of thing, that's what happened with Torres. Like that was what Gold Cup that year. Like he was probably the best player in the tournament. And then he was on Sounders and everyone was like, "Oh, that guy that we all just watched for the last 2 months, you know."
He's so easy to love too.
Yeah,
his
but
hair
like,
and his
but somebody who comes out and like has a personality and is just intense, and it's not about the interview quotes or whatever. And that's not to say like interview quotes aren't fun, Stefan Fry, but just somebody who's a boss out there on the field and you can like admire and be like, wow, like that's a level of intensity that this team needs, you know. And I think that's the thing that Sounders. Not that other teams don't, but Sounders, maybe because you have people like Schmetzer and Gonzalo Pineda and like, you know, Traore, who just like see the global soccer game a little bit differently, you know, and they don't stack the team one way or the other. They're like, nope, we want that piece and this piece and this piece, and let's figure the chemistry out and kind of go from there. I just mentioned Steph a second ago. Cannot get enough about that guy. We talked a little about contracts, like CBA stuff. There was some TAM situations a couple years ago that a lot of us heard about, that Sounders were like not allowed to pay him more money 1 year.
Yes.
that guy's never leaving, right? Like at this point, like he's just
Hope not.
here. Yeah. Talk to me from your perspective about like what you think he does for the team that maybe we don't see every day.
I think he is the perfect balance of a leader with aggressiveness, but extremely calmness. I mean, it's a weird way to put it together, but that's just the way he acts. It's like the most composed leader you see out there in that defensive line. And he has the ability to create confidence for those guys in front because they know, hey, I got your back in case that guy gets past you.
Yeah.
And that connection between him and that back four is crazy important. Now, when it comes to just being that guy that's going to come up and talk to you, I've seen him several times. He goes up to players. He's not afraid to let you know. And you'll see him yell in the games. He's not afraid to let you know. He's not coming at you personally. He's coming at you because guess what? That was your guy or that was your role. And he's not afraid to tell you that. There's a lot of keepers that maybe are not able to do that, or even other teammates that are just gonna maybe not tell you how it is. He's not, and that's the type of leadership that the team needs back there. So I think he's essential in every way.
I think a lot of people in the moment were like, I don't know what to make of this when he had first come over from Toronto, and then there were other people who were like, if that dude's healthy, this is a steal. It's a steal.
Absolutely.
And I think what was interesting was comments that I had heard at the time when he had first come to Sounders was like, Michael Sperning was pretty good, in net, but was like terrible organizer, like didn't necessarily distribute and do other things the way that Fry and Keller and other Sounders keepers have done over the years. I would say that what you just dropped is like pretty consistent from sort of what we see. And I think we've gotten to see some pretty neat clips of like Steph in the huddle, breaking it down, or Steph in locker rooms, or Steph telling Danny to take his shirt off on the internet, wear sunscreen.
Shout out to Danny.
Sorry, I guess. I don't know.
Way to be comfy, man. Man, I wish I could.
But like, again, having met Steph on a number of occasions and talked to him kind of offline, like outside of soccer stuff, very amazing person, but like real focused. Like when he gets
Extremely
in it,
focused.
You're like, whoa, okay, I didn't even notice that thing over there.
Absolutely,
And
he's such a hard
great
worker.
to hear.
Hard worker. You always see him. He's always one of the last guys to leave the field. He works on everything. He's touching the ball like on the ground, constantly working on that, constantly working on the way he puts the ball out there. I mean, you see him really do it. And then with the younger guys like Trey Moose, he worked with Tyler Miller. I mean, he is really a guy that you want to have there to just literally give that pedigree down to your other players, your other keeper. So he's just a fantastic guy. I have nothing ill to say about that guy on a personal level, on a professional level. He's awesome to talk to, gives you great quotes. The guy's an artist. He has the best beard I've seen. I mean, I try to give him tips, but his stuff's expensive.
Do you have a Stephen Fry tattoo?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. He's just a great guy. If I had a tattoo, people would say that it'd be Roman, and no, I don't. So yeah.
All right. So wow, we could just talk about Steph for the rest of the night. I mean, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
We got a couple of random questions. Hope points out Sounders like to steal team captains and other fan favorites. I'm super okay with that.
Yep,
like, let's
that's a
do
fact.
that. If it works, it works. Like, go with it. Andy wants to say, if Fry's going to get a statue, if he has to start a GoFundMe, he will. I think people would pay into that. I hate to say it.
I got to see the Ozzy statue, and then we can get a Steph statue. But I'm all in. I'll chip in. I got $5.
Bregel earlier asked is it Haggart?
Chris Haggart.
Chris Haggart is still in camp with the first team?
He was as of the last day or two.
So theoretically is in Mexico with them right now?
He was an interesting player.
Yeah, and I am expecting to get a roster here update in the next day or so. So fingers crossed we'll get that. But yeah, he's looked not out of place at all. And obviously, if he made it down to Mexico, they're impressed with him. So again, not being able to see any training or games, it makes it difficult to provide too much. But as long as he's down there, you got to assume he's doing well because they're not going to just have them down there for a holiday.
I want to see. There's a couple of guys who I see increased role of minutes not just talking about the younger guys. Danny Leyva is one of those guys that if the Sounders can manage to, and I think they will, to get ahead on CCL, Danny Leyva is going to get a lot of minutes because he just looks great. Out of a couple of things that we've been able to see in training is just the guy is the real deal. Like, he's composed on the ball. He looks like he's grown. Like he's playing out there like he is the experienced guy and is not afraid to take on a body. And his vision is fantastic. Just his ability to just look up and make that exact pass. The way he reads the game is not of his age. And I think that's crucial for a guy who I think is going to be pretty impressive.
What do you see as his best position? Because I don't see a 6 in him. I see more of an 8.
Oh, that's a tough one. I would call it an 8 just because he has that ability to just kind of prompt forward and give you that extra threaded pass into that 9. Absolutely. I think maybe an 8 would be his right position. His through balls are great. Through balls are great.
Ultimately, I think Sounders fans should be excited to see a bunch of younger players make their way kind of up and into the club. And that's where, S2 and now Defiance have like changed the dynamic a little bit here. And that's something that folks of, if you've watched football in other countries, like you sort of see that.
Right.
It's not that Barca 2 is the same thing that, as the big club. But, people get to see that and like they grow up, they sort of grow up alongside and get to watch
that's what
players
you want
come
to
up.
see. I mean,
and it's interesting to get to see that. And it's really funny now to look at like Roldan and Morris, like they've been here a minute already.
Oh,
like
yeah.
it doesn't necessarily always feel that way. And then you look and you're like, oh, wow, that was a long time ago that happened. And that's
This is Roldan's 6th season.
It's
which is
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah. You're like,
He drafted in 2015.
So there's a couple of other questions we want to kind of dig into. I'm just curious on your perspective on Nico. There was this weird point where captaincy floated around on the team, and it would be like a few games here, and then Ozzy was out, and then Ozzy was back, and Nico was sometimes captain, and sometimes Ozzy was, etc. Nico, the captain right now, is that the deal?
That's the deal.
That's the deal.
And that's a
good
closed deal. Seal it up. Do whatever you want to it. Lock it. That's your captain. I mean, that is your leader in the front end. He is your main piece that just puts it all together up there, and you see him work hard. He can put away goals. He is just a fantastic guy, and every single player has the utmost respect for Nicolas Lodero because he shows it to you off the field and on the field. So I think he is the key piece of that offense. Raul Ruiz is fantastic putting it away, and great guy, absolutely your goal scorer. But without Nicolas Lodero, his goal production would drop.
So would you say in that same vein where like, the month that Ozzy was out, Sounders were all of a sudden bad and people are like, oh, weird, no one in that position. Same situation with Nico right now. Like you can't have him.
You cannot have that. I mean, we saw Harry Ship kind of work it. He did well there against Republic, but definitely you don't want to see that. You need Nicolas Lodero is the main focus of your team. He funnels everything, absolutely everything, whether it's him shifting and moving around to just create havoc for defenses, or whether he is distributing or maybe making those runs behind the 9 himself. I mean, he's just paramount for this team.
Well, you look at he and Roldan. Like if you actually just watch them, like just focus during the game, like the amount of ground they cover just laterally, let alone the up and down the field, is insane. To see.
That's why I'm kind of looking forward to seeing Roldan on the wing, with
Lodero
and Morris.
That sounds scary.
That
if you really in a good way, like
that's the
good
guy
scary
that can run all over the field. And then obviously Morris brings a different dynamic than Roldan because no one's catching Morris in a sprint pretty much. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see that group of 4 up top, and then you've got now Svensson and João Paulo behind them. I mean, that's just an incredible, formidable attack that they have now.
And João will help their roles because his ability to find them on the wing, on the run, because he's delivery was like literally he's giving it to you right here. If you're a quarterback and a receiver, he's giving it to you on the run. I mean, it was fantastic. So just having that ability to have that from that back line, woo, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
It's just like the 49 seconds of B-roll that I saw of him on the ball. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And it's funny, we were talking about Nico for a hot minute there, but Nico, that first game, was what, Orlando away, right? Yeah. Yeah, it was Orlando in August.
Was that the 3-0?
I think that
Yeah,
was the first game
3-1
you played.
Dempsey hat trick.
Yeah.
You just like watched him putting through balls in, and he was like angry that no one connected. And I was like, oh, okay, that's different. Like just a whole nother thing. And that's where it's cool to see players like Zhao come through. We're like, oh, this person's been playing a different level of football, than we've necessarily seen in MLS. Maybe not Sounders. Sounders have been up here for a while, but the rest of the league is like, oh shit, I don't want to defend against or attack against that kind of defender for Yeimar or somebody like that. So
I still want to see Zhao on a defensive aspect. On MLS can be very direct, and it can be very exhausting for a guy where he's at. So I still want to see that part. But in terms of offense, the guy's great.
So let's walk away from Sounders for a second. Anything else you've been paying attention to? Other teams in the league? Predictions you want to make for the season? Because we may not have you back on for a minute until you're obviously free on a Monday night. But any other things you're hearing about, trends you're seeing, players that you're like, we should all pay attention to that person?
That's a good
Diego
question.
Valeri put that guy in the ground,
I think Diego Rossi will have a good season if he can stay in MLS, if he doesn't go anywhere else, because I know that he has a lot of people behind his tail in Europe. I feel like Brian, the other Hawaiian, is another player that's to look at. LAFC, I think, is a very, very good team. I think Seattle, they did great against them last playoff game, but that team is a force to be reckoned
still loaded.
with. Yeah, they're
Still
loaded in every position.
Well, we were just talking about them bringing on BWP.
Yeah. And Andy Nahar is the latest.
I don't know.
The latest rumor.
I would not want BWP subbing on 10, 15
I
minutes left
agree.
in a match, like at all.
With Bella, and I mean,
No.
that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's an issue, absolutely. So I think that they're doing things well. If I could say a team that I think is going to go down, and it could be a hot take, I think Atlanta is not going to have a great season. I think Atlanta might even drop the ball in CCL. I don't know. Everybody has them really high. I feel like Frank de Boer has
He's not meshed with
the roster. He's let go of some players. I think letting go of Gressel was a bad move. Bijava was a guy that you could have off the bench. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to have a bad season. That's Nico's take. Take it how you want it.
Atlanta losing in general, I'm okay with. So I'll take that.
I mean, I don't disagree with that premise, except to say that the East is not very good. So they've still got a lot of terrible teams should be racking up points on. But I could see them definitely taking a step back. But again, they're going to have a bad conference to kind of prop them up.
What do you think about the not playing everyone thing in MLS? Like every league ever, you play everybody at least once.
Yeah, that's.
What do you think about that?
I mean, the only options were 34, so every team's missing out on 3 teams, so you'd have to go up to 37.
Okay.
Or do some type of
You could be the championship.
machinations. Yeah, I mean, I don't like it personally. I'm still trying to figure out how they decided what teams weren't playing what, because I suspect there was some NFL parody shenanigans involved in those decisions.
That's never happened.
I agree with that.
I need to dig in a little bit on that, just based on the teams that certain teams aren't playing. But I mean, the options, none of the options were great. Even if you exclude the potential shenanigans, the options were not great. They were not and have not been willing to increase the number of games. Just because the number of weeks that are available to play, and
well, now it only gets worse.
games.
Like, we're going to start adding more teams.
Yeah.
They're not going to add games, right?
Yeah.
So
I think so if you get to once they get to 30, then if you're playing every team in your conference twice, that's you'll see there's 15 to 15. I assume that's how it would go. So you'd be playing, you got 28 teams or 28 games between your conference, and then that's 6 for the for the remaining conference.
bad.
That's crazy.
Yeah. There's gonna have to be some changes at some point. I feel.
Yeah, or maybe they go to 3 conferences at that point, in which case you could get every team in, I think, because you still have to cut some teams out, because if you have 10 teams per conference, that's 18 games, and then 20 more. So yeah, that's still thank you. That's still a problem. So I do not know what they're going to do.
It degrades from here.
Yeah, it's not going to get any better.
That's where I think you ended up in situations where the NFL went the way it did, which is like you stacked the conferences over one another, and then it's like, well, you play everybody here twice, and then you pick one of the others. They're going to have to do something like that at some point if they're not going to end up with 40 teams and
then
MLS 1 and 2. Like,
that's the issues with every time you start adding teams, and I've seen it with older leagues that have been, a lot older than MLS, because we're relatively young compared to other leagues. So yeah, I think it's going to be something you have to change, and it's going to be difficult to just kind of bring it all together.
I don't know what they're going to do. There are no real good solutions at this point going forward. So
relegate some teams.
Considering the ruling that just came out, I do not think that's going to happen.
Sorry, Stockade.
Yes.
I want to see what Toronto does as well. I feel like Toronto is always a team that's interesting, and I'm not seeing much from them.
Yeah, the new DP they signed is kind of but
I'm following.
Puzuela, people weren't talking a whole lot about him, and he came in and blew up.
He
so.
was
I'm following
really
somebody who's
good.
looking
Yeah.
at it. I think they're going to bring in a guy here. Maybe I'll report on that a little bit later, but I think that they're looking at a pretty good guy, a younger guy. It'll be
Toronto
interesting. Toronto, yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't really know where they're at right now, and that's odd to see because they're always a team that always has their stuff together, and they just haven't.
Yeah.
Any stuff on the Sounders radar as far as internationals or just people that are looking at?
Well, their international spots are full at this time, so until they try to make a move for that, I know that we've been told it's not a big deal.
Just trade for
in the
one.
past, you'll trade for one. You got to pay for it or whatever. But I know that teams are being a little bit stingy with that, is what I'm hearing.
The same thing happened last year.
Yeah.
Right up until the deadline, the Sounders needed one, and they finally got one for nothing. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Garth and Chris are, some of the best in the game. So if somebody's going to make it happen, are those guys. Once again, I could see a winger coming, and I could see a center back coming. I just don't think it'll be in the winter window. I would be shocked if it's in the winter window. When it comes to an international, I think that if we're going to see a big move, in quotes, of course, would be in the summer.
Yeah. And we still have to see kind
of Coutinho.
We still have to see how the CBA is going to ultimately shake out, because again, that's not the full deal has not been hammered out, because those things are usually like 75 to 80 pages. We've got basically like a 3 or 2 page bullet points of all the key points, but none of the details haven't been fleshed out. So we have to wait for that as well.
So normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, they've got it almost all the way there, but there's still some things they got to hammer out.
This is pretty brand.
Yeah, it's all the way. Yeah, I mean, the last one in 2015, they agreed on the day before the season, but the deal wasn't ratified until July. So
we have a few minutes left. Thank you for hanging out with us.
No, man, I love it.
I know
Thank
your
you so
food
much.
is super cold. And
No, I'm gonna kill these afterwards. I can't do it. It's kind of like a first date. You can't really eat with your hands, so I didn't think it through. You know what I mean? I don't want the viewers out here watching me just knob down these things like a lion. So I'm gonna just keep that to myself.
Weirder things have happened on SonarFeed. Where's that gif of Dave trying to put his hoodie on?
Yes.
So, couple little bits. Cashless CenturyLink Field.
Woof. The crowd
Actual
is not happy
collective groan.
I don't like it.
I get the concept. I actually don't agree with it. Having been a person that just wants to walk in with $40 and spend cash,
absolutely.
whatever, and be done. I'm curious to see if it survives in Seattle, because of politics in Seattle.
Right.
I can name the city council person that will be the first to publicly protest this happening. I don't know, like early returns. Like, have you guys heard anything about this?
No,
Like,
I had sent in a request to get some more information. I mean, I don't think the Sounders had anything to do with it because this is a first and goal initiative, as far as I can tell.
it is a stadium decision.
So that, this is not on the Sounders at all. They may agree with it or not, but either way, I'm sure it's, first and goal was like, yeah, this is happening.
That's exactly
so
what I thought.
get on board. So, I mean, I don't carry cash typically.
Yeah.
But I know people that do, and I certainly wouldn't want to begrudge them the ability to
For sure.
to spend
That's
cash
the
in the
way I
stadium.
feel.
I think my main concerns are kind of the logistics of it.
You can wait in line to wait in line.
Yeah.
now?
Well, I'm talking about the fees if you do not use everything on the card. If you've got
Well, it's not reloadable.
Oh,
Yeah,
apparently.
it's not
At least
reloadable.
according to the website, it's not.
yeah,
But-
that seems egregious. And I
Egregious.
Yeah.
Good.
I
Well, in
can-
Washington's pretty hardcore. Like, your gift cards can't expire in Washington. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a thing. So, the fees and some of this other stuff, like,
yeah.
I'll be shocked if
that-
they don't
that-
have to back off
Yeah.
some of that.
That's-
Because my
yeah.
impression, having heard about this before the news, was that it was either going to be reloadable or it would be a little bit more malleable than it appears to be,
Mhm.
and it doesn't seem great. And like, am I going to be able to walk up with 5 of them that have
Dollar on-
$1.75
yeah,
on them
exactly,
and
yeah.
buy something? Because if I'm not, that's a problem. You're like,
Save us any time then.
Yeah.
also,
Right.
Yeah.
So
do you know
that's-
how many
that's good.
physically disposed of credit cards are going to be floating around?
I don't
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, I guess.
Mhm.
It is not very green. Good call.
Yes, those are all
It's interesting.
excellent and legitimate points, and I would suspect that you're right that they will likely have to make some adjustments to that.
It just surprises me they wouldn't go the other way, which is like the people who have cards you can tap. Like, I have a card like that, where some of the beer vendors in the South End like trialed out like having the wireless POS, and I could just literally
Boom.
tap and like tip
Yeah.
on there right there, and it was like 12 seconds
Yeah.
that I went through a transaction. Like, for the people that have it, or they have Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or whatever, that's
Yeah,
actually
those are great.
amazing.
Yeah, they're
like,
great.
Right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
use it all. Like, I use it at 7-Eleven. Like, it's amazing, to be able to just walk in and use it. But I don't want to have to only use that.
Right.
And there are people who don't have those.
Exactly.
Or they're
Those
not used to it.
avenues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a little iffy. So I'm curious to see where this goes. And we were talking before the show, like, again, there's still people who are freaking out about clear bags outside the stadium or mobile ticketing or whatever. I'm like, and we're going to do this?
Yeah.
Seems a little iffy, ultimately.
I'm sure the Sounders will ultimately have to comment on it. They haven't as of yet. I mean, this just came down today, so
Yeah,
Right.
something will happen.
yeah, we'll see.
There's definitely some questions about beer vendors. Yes, I was told the beer vendors will all be able to take credit cards. So
Yeah.
There you go.
theoretically, that's good. Hope asks, is Raul's contract up at the end of the year?
I believe it's 2022.
Yeah. I think Ladero's 2021 and
Raul 2022.
2022,
That's
or
correct.
vice versa. But you probably know better. But yeah, they are both definitely here for a couple more years at
Yeah, so-
minimum.
Unless there's some sort of want or need to redo his contract, he should be good until 2022.
We can pay for as many neck tattoos as he wants forever. By the way, there's a really good, it's not really a joke, but there's a good comment going on out there that the tattoo over here says Season's Greetings, because it kind of looks like that font that we've all seen. It doesn't, but it's amazing. It's almost the end of the show. We're a little hot right now. If you were to sing karaoke tonight, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good
Sandbag.
question.
Come on.
Blame it on the alcohol, Jamie Foxx.
The solid choice.
That's a pretty
Yes.
good choice.
Yes.
I don't know. It just came up. is the one song I say I know, and I've kind of
I
that.
enjoy
Other than
the-
that is going Spanish, so that's what it is.
So Spanish from where? What would you sing?
Oh, Spanish is easy. I mean, I'm either gonna go Nicky Jam, Hola Bebé, or I'm gonna go just some Ozuna. I mean, I would call all kinds of reggaeton out here. And I might get salsa going on, and I'll just give some Mark Anthony or something.
Dude, if you want to hit the reggaeton, Berliner would be all about it.
No, nobody want to hear that.
Yeah.
Actually,
I've tried that.
everyone here would want to hear that.
Yeah, I was a little tipsy, and I threw some Spanish at the wrong place, and nobody was like, "What the guy doing over there?" Don't worry. Yeah.
It's actually just as funny in reverse. Like, like I've been on the stage and sang "Maná" terribly
Oh,
in
there you go.
Puerto Vallarta. People were like, "What is that person doing?
Do it.
And why do
That's
they
right.
know Spanish words?" Did you buy any Girl Scout cookies yet this year?
Yes.
What were they?
Samosas. The
Yeah.
Samoas.
yeah. There you go. That's what it is.
Samosas are also tasty.
Also known as caramel delights, depending on where you are geographically.
Yeah. I like
Samoas.
those. Yeah, with some coffee. Well, I can't do it right now because I'm kind of training. But yeah, I will.
He's like, I
definitely do
only
that.
eat one sleeve.
Typically that's me. Typically it's like a cup of coffee the size of my face, and then like a whole roll of those.
go.
Yeah, my wife is like, yeah, you gotta put this away. Yeah, but yeah, no, not right now. I'm good. I'm training.
Yeah,
We're getting
the
ready.
media game. Yeah, we all embarrassed ourselves last year.
So this
Some
year,
of us got
we're not gonna
injured.
embarrass ourselves.
Yes, that's the whole goal.
Adrian
It's-
Hanauer only smoked all of us.
All of us.
Oh, he was actually pretty ridiculous in the game. I mean, granted, again, the level of opposition was somewhat limited, but he's actually pretty good.
He's very
Yeah.
good. There's a pretty bad photo of me turning his after him right before I hook him. But yeah, he.
I mean,
he's
take
good.
your cards in the media game.
Yeah.
If you ever have a chance to take a yellow,
Oh,
it's then.
You know it. I know you don't know the team, but you're not gonna embarrass me like that. No, he's very good. He literally was just shaking and baking and putting things away. I mean, it was awesome.
Him
It
and
was
Chris
great.
Henderson were on the same team, which
Oh,
was
Chris.
outrageous.
That seems unfair.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like that guy runs stairs
Yeah.
before
Well,
games
yes.
that he's not playing in. Like, what are you
Chris Henderson's
doing?
great. I'm pretty sure they gave him to us at one point.
Yeah, they
I
did
think
switch things
they
up,
just-
yes.
Here you go, Chris. And then I think we got some speed. Yeah. So this year, I'm on an indoor team right now, just getting ready for it. No, low carbs, running every morning, trying to get ready.
Right.
Let's
That's what I
go.
like to see.
The problem with indoor teams is you can go up to, Arena Sports at Magnuson, and you walk in, and Freddie is there with Steve Zakawani and
Yeah.
Freddie's brother, and they're just warming up, and you're like, no, I'm not playing against your team. And they're just sandbagging on other people's teams. And you're like, this is not fair.
In off-season occasion, I played against Raul Reyes, and I stopped a shot by him because I got put on goal, and then my hand
Yeah, I was going to say.
hurt for forever.
How'd that go?
Because he was not playing. Like I literally have photos of like bruises in my legs and in my arms because, I decided I got on goal because guess what? I got pretty tired on the field because it had been a while. And then I got on goal thinking that was the right way to do it. And then I realized I had this monster coming in.
Yeah. Again,
And, yeah.
that guy passed to himself over a person.
No, but see, you think
Like, that should be illegal.
But you think Raul was gonna be like, okay, well, I'm Raul. I'm just gonna finesse it.
Yeah,
and
chip it. No.
Nope.
He's trying to win the game, baby. Yeah. So shout out to my Pulsa Sports Network team.
Wait,
we
Raul
put it
indoor?
together. It was indoor. We
No,
did it.
that is not fair.
Yeah, it was
Like at all.
Yeah. We had some other players with us, Danny Leva and Joe Campo, were on our team against Raul. But it was
It was
fun.
all of you just
it-
versus Raul.
No,
Because
Score
that
was 5-1.
he had his crew of friends who were mildly good, So yeah.
Mildly good. They only
got
played
close.
in Ascenso.
We got
Yeah,
close.
never quite made it to the EPL. They were just Liga
Thank
MXS.
Thank God for
Was
Danny,
this-
by the way. Danny was
Good
doing
call.
it all. Danny Leva was. Him and Ocampo were just running the team, just like yes, go.
So 2 things, and then we'll let you eat. If you could ask people watching, listening, whatever, here at the bar tonight to do a thing this season, what would it be? It could be like donate to charity. It could be like, I don't know, come help you play against Raul Ruidiaz in the offseason, like whatever it is. Like if you could make an ask for people, what would that be?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, not to go or like Miss United States over here, but just to find a way to learn about somebody else's culture and just unify. We're in such a divisive moment in our communities, and I would definitely say just get out there and find somebody from another culture and embrace it and learn about it and find things in common and not things that divide you guys. I think that's key and important for all of us. Once again, this is just me being real and not Miss United States. But if I could ask one thing that's not sports related or selfish or go click on Postal Sports Network.
We've spent
I got the
half
low-key
of
plug.
entire shows making this conversation, so it's good to hear people be real in a moment. And you're not in the booth right now, and you're not cheering for Sounders. Predictions for the season.
What type of predictions? How far they'll make it?
How far you want to go? Like you could say record. You could say Ruidiaz scores 47 goals.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm gonna guarantee
Call your shot.
stuff, it's
You don't have to guarantee anything. Just
okay. Good. Well, I think Seattle will make it far in CCL. I think I see this getting at the very least to the semifinals. I'm a true believer that Seattle would be a top 3 team in the conference and make a good run at the playoffs. I think that Roldan is going to have a stellar season. I think that Raul Ruidiaz will get at least 15 goals. And yeah.
All right. Mickey, any other questions before we bounce?
No, I think we're good.
Anybody else any questions before we leave? Are you going to do Mark Anthony before we go tonight? There you go.
No,
It's happening. All right. Well,
I'm
Nico,
not going to hurt you guys.
thank you for joining us. We're sorry about your cold chicken wings.
No, man. Hey, I eat
we'll,
cold chicken, baby. That's what it is.
We'll get back and, as Ugo would say, chop it up another time. So thank you for coming.
No, thank you guys. I really do.
And we'll see-
Appreciate it. You guys are always a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
See you soon.
We're gonna be back here next week.
We will be here next
Okay.
week. At least I will. I don't know.
Okay.
Are you going to be here?
I might.
Are you
most
going to
likely.
Honduras?
No. I wish.
Same.
Yeah.
So we'll be here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Night, everybody.